Unfortunately, there is a correlation between finances and health. One oftentimes affects the other. There's also a correlation between health and politics, but we'll save that for another video. There's a reason that a high level amount of health problems occur in underserved populations. It's often so deeply rooted that it's not just an external factor, but an internal factor as well. So in this video, we're going to explore some ways that finances affect your health, because one crucial way to optimize your health is by optimizing your finances. So let's get into it. Number one, let's start with the obvious. Quality foods and products are not cheap. And because of this, it leads to only a certain group or a certain population of people being able to have access to them. So we're thinking organic, or the best cut of meat, or buying fresh from farms, or getting products that are low in chemicals, products that aren't as cancerous when they're consumed through the skin or consumed in the air around you. All these things come with resources. And one of those bigger resources is money. And we love to put the blame on the person itself and saying, well, you should be able to buy organic and not buy certain things that are harmful to you, eat better, and all these things. And to me, that's an ignorant and a self-righteous way of minimizing the fact that these people might not just have access to it. Did it ever dawn to you that maybe they can't afford the $7 deodorant or the $13 chemical-free house cleaner, or whatever thing? And this point also excludes the fact that many people take a very basic food item, market it as a superfood, and then capitalize on it, upcharging it and making it not affordable anymore to the very communities that use it all the time. Cultural appropriation. So let's call it what it is. So you take these foods that are good for you, but they're in the wrong hands. Now we're charging $9, $10 for it, making it only accessible to certain people, and then you wonder why health is at the decline that it is. But again, I said politics is for a different video, so let me back up a little bit. However, it does include everything else, though. So like I mentioned earlier, the foods that we consume, the products that we inhale, and the things that we put on our skin and our hair and our teeth, all these things affect your internal and external health. And that is directly related to what you can afford to spend money on and what you can't. Because when your financial resources are limited, you are forced to really take what you can get. It's like, what can I get for $5? And you have to roll with that. And sometimes the thing that you can get for $5 isn't the best thing for you. Okay, number two, we have the can't afford to be sick. We use that term figuratively, or that phrase, I should say, but really it's a little more literal. A lot of people quite literally cannot afford to be sick. Being sick involves taking some time off of work to deal with the sickness and or go to the doctor. But in places where you don't get PTO, missing the days at work is the difference between gas in the car or meeting rent or things like this. So you can't really afford it. So you have to go to work sick anyway. You have to deal with whatever symptoms you're experiencing. You have to ultimately deal with that disease. In addition to that, taking time off work, missing the pay, and then going to the doctor. Now, if you're already not getting paid time off, you're most likely not getting a good health insurance either. So a lot of people don't have health insurance, and or it's too high to pay for on a consistent basis. So they're going to the doctor when they can't afford, when they can't take it anymore. They're on the brink of death pretty much, and now they're going to the doctor. That ER trip is costing grands. The 30-minute little check-in, the check your vitals, whatever, is costing grands. The 30-minute talk with the doctor saying like, oh, this is what you got, here's your prescription, is costing grams, and then going to file that prescription, that's a cost too. So you got to pay for the medication, pay for the ride over there, pay for the doctor to talk to you, and pay to get checked out by the person before the doctor. When you add all that up, you start to think, I should have just stayed home and been sick. And so again, you blame people for walking around carrying these diseases. You blame people for being sick. You blame people for not taking care of their health, and at the same time, moving their access to the same things, the very things that could make them better. So it ties into finances. So when you do have good benefits, when you do have a good paying salary, when you do have a good cushion to cover medical expenses, now these things aren't so much an issue. You can miss a day at work. You can pay for the ER trip. You can pay for your medication. So again, that financial health is affecting your physical health now. Number 3, we have the mental health decline. So when you add in number 1 and number 2, that alone is enough to make someone feel bad mentally, right? The emotional state is a little chaotic, it's a little turmoil. So from those things, you're starting to feel anxious, depressed, going through these mental health battles, and those are now preventing you from being able to function. So now you really don't have the energy to cook for yourself or to go work out or to go on a walk. So it's this cycle. It's like I didn't have enough money to take care of this. Now I'm being stressed. Now my mental health is affected. Now since my mental health is affected, I don't have the will, the desire, the energy to take care of myself. And now we're back into the circle. The anxiety, depression, burnout, etc., we're experiencing such a high spike in cortisol, which is the stress hormone. Well, with that comes increase in body fat, and increase in body fat comes with what? Yes, we know all the effects of that. So it does play a significant factor on our mental health. In fact, as someone that has worked with many of clients in the past, some of my clients that have that were in the worst physical shape were in even worse mental shape. So they absolutely go together. And a part of that, so when I took the correlation between their physical health and their mental health and put those together and then zoomed out on that, underlying it, there was also a financial issue. And then when you take that into consideration, the mental health decline, not being able to do much for yourself, what would someone that had money do? They would outsource. They would hire a therapist to help them get through it. They'd maybe hire a personal trainer to help them get their physical health together. They might hire a meal prep service or some private chef or, whatever to help them deal with that. They might, hit up so-and-so for the Xanax and the Adderall, you know what I mean? So it's just like even hire a nanny to help take care of the kids. So when you think about, you're putting yourself in these situations and of all the stressors that you're experiencing, and you think that you're doing it alone. And then you tell other people, well, just figure it out, because I'm figuring it out, but you're not. You've outsourced. You use your money to outsource help because you could afford that. And now your life is getting better because you have the help. But if you didn't have that money, what would you be doing? Where would you be? That's what people are experiencing. So money absolutely buys you this happiness because now you can get help. And you can outsource things and you can take things off of your plate so that you can focus on yourself. But when you don't have that, you're forced to figure it out by yourself. And you can't. That's why we have these services. If people didn't need them, none of those services would be in business. But they're in business because people need them. And then the last thing I'll mention here is the mentality. And this kind of ties into the politics that I said I would save for another video, but I'll dibble dabble in this a little bit now. It's inherent in how do I put this? When you've lived in poverty for so long, you begin to inherit poor mindset. To no fault, I'm not saying to no fault of yours, because at some point we have to take accountability for our own lives, yes, and figure out where our issues are and try to work through those. That's absolutely true. But we're talking generations. So let's say, as a very basic example, you were building a Jenga tower, okay? And someone told you, hey, build this tower. When you finish that tower, I'll give you a month's worth of free room and board, and I'll still pay your salary. You don't have to go to work. Okay, so you just get a month off, and all your bills are still covered. That's like, okay, that sounds pretty cool. So you're building your little Jenga piece. When you get to the very top, you're almost done. Someone just comes by and like knocks over your tower. And you're like, you're a little frustrated by it, right? You're annoyed. You're feeling some kind of way, but you're like, you know what? Yeah, it took me some time to do that, but I can just do it again. So start to build it again, boom, someone else comes by. So the second time, you're just like, now you're trying to get a little more creative. Okay, how can I protect this? How can I make sure no one's going to knock this down? You have all this anxiety around it. Maybe you think, let me move somewhere else where it's safer for me to do this. But this is where they tell you where if you move, you can't get the reward. The reward has to be done right here. So you're forced to stay in this situation trying to build this Jenga puzzle piece, and someone keeps knocking it down. So now you're never going to get that thing you were promised. Eventually, you get to a point where you feel it's no longer worth it. You say to yourself, no matter how many times I do this and I get almost to the end, it gets destroyed. So it's not even worth my time. And now you stop striving for that. It's what happens to many people in the history of their lives. They did all the things, they mind their own business, they worked hard, they grind, they used their brain, they used the resources that were given to them, they did the best to get what they could. And every time it was taken away from them like it was nothing. And so at some point you fear that. So whenever you get a bunch of money, let's say you saved, you did the right thing, you saved all this money, right when you got that $100,000 that you were told that you needed to save, it was stolen. It was robbed from you. You will get to a point where now every dollar you spend, you want to spend it as quickly as you can because, someone comes to rob you and there's no money to rob. You know what I'm saying? And so like these, and that's just a one of many examples, but these are the things that you get conditioned to that leaves people stuck in that poverty mindset. Because really it's fear. At the root of that, it's fear of never being able to, all your hard work going to nothing. Because historically, because it's not like you're theorizing this, historically that has happened. And so now you start to have this view on the world, and then you pass that on to your kids. Like, hey, when you get a little money, make sure you go ahead and get what you need because, this, that, and the third. And so now here we are 7 generations later, and nobody know how to save any money. And then because they don't have any money, here we are back to the point of my video. Our health is declining. So finances and health, moral of the story, absolutely go hand in hand. And it's really up to us to understand. I'm gonna take personal responsibility to put that bridge together and explain it in a way that makes sense so that we realize how important it is and we work to cultivate the relationship between the both of them. That deep seated, root mentality around it is very hard to pluck out. So with all that being said, when you're thinking about your health, consider your financial health as well. And I'll drop a couple videos that I would love for you to check out to help you on your journey to repairing your financial relationship with yourself. So if you like this video, you know what to do. Give me that thumbs up. I would greatly appreciate it. The knowledge we gain is powerful, but it's the knowledge we share that makes a difference. So please share this with someone who could use that information to bring those two ideas together. And I will catch you in my next video. As always, don't forget to crush it.